Everybody, please sit straight, spine erect, chin away from your chest, eyes gently closed. Shift your eye gaze to the third eye, the center of the eyebrows. To repose in our Jyotishmati, the light of awareness within. Take a deep breath and exhale. We'll begin today's session with the opening chant. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Welcome to the 10 YEC Youth Excellence Center weekly satsang. And we've been on the journey of exploration of Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya Yoga. Sankhya is about the right perception or the absolute perception of the Sat. Sat is the truth. So far, in the previous two sessions, we covered why Sankhya, what is Sankhya and why Sankhya. And then we've also taken on the journey of the different constructs of the Sankhya. We started knowing about who am I? In the Bhagavad Gita satsang, what you've learned is there are three existential questions that we always need to answer. One is about who we are, who am I, our true identity. And the second one is, but that who am I, that inquiry only gives us the thing about 50% of the true identity of the situation. In other words, it's only about who am I, but that exploration is incomplete without knowing where am I, which is where am I. So those two together gives us a complete perspective about where we are. And then the third one is about why am I here, where am I? So it's about who am I, where am I, and why am I here, where I am. And then those three things will then give us something about what do I do about it? What do I do about it? So we've, in the first session, we kind of talked about, in the previous session, we started talking about the self, our true identity. And then today we are going to focus more about where am I, the other dimension of who am I. And then we've already covered about why am I here, where am I in the previous Karma Yoga series. So the three put together will give us the complete picture about where I am, and then also gives the clues about what is the right way to lead our life, to take the total cost of the situation that we are in, and then we can actually then go result in that inner peace and outer dynamism. So what we're going to do today is we're going to quickly recap, some of the things that we have done, and then focus more on the where am I, which is the Prakriti. Let me share my screen. And before we begin, let me start the Dhyana Shloka. Partaya pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grahitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshini Bhagavatim Astadashadhyayini Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshini. Beautiful words. So as always, my pranam and namaskaram to Shriramji or Ekaji. Everything that I shared here is the blessings from Shriramji, the Yoga Sutra Foundation series and the Bhagavad Gita series that Shriramji bestowed upon me. So, as we said, we looked at what is Sankhya. Sankhya is about the absolute perception of the truth. as Shankara defined, is samkhyaYate prakashayate. It's the correct and lucid perception of who we are. What is our true identity? It is Sat Chit Ananda. It's that truth, and it is the consciousness, and then we are eternally blissful. But when we connect to our physicality, of the realm of our identity as we perceived it with our mind and our sensory apparatus, we have a distorted perception. In other words, we kind of move away from Sat Chit Ananda, and then we become finite beings. That's how we perceive with our mind and the sensory apparatus. And then what does that misperception of the identity causes suffering. And there's a famous in the Advaita Vedanta, as it refers to as Rajju Sarpa Bhranti. We mistake rope for a snake. In that illusion creates all kind of anxiety. And again, we mistake our body and the mind and the drama that's being played by the sensory apparatus as our true identity, and we get carried away by the roller coaster of all the emotions and the finite life and death, and it causes suffering. The Sankhya's bold proclamation is that misperception is the root of all suffering. It's the root of all suffering. But what Sankhya also says, that anytime we have a negative emotion, anytime that we are away from that ananda is also a misperception. Anytime we are in a negative emotion of sorrow and suffering, that is also misperception. What a bold proclamation of the truth. And then what we then looked at is why Sankhya. And the Sankhya basically says is like, as we are navigating through this life journey, as the Kurukshetra, as Arjuna went through, we all are involved in several situations. Some things are that gives us a choice, but most importantly, we have a fear of separation, particularly the fear of death. In fact, most of the spiritual inquiry has started from the fundamental question of people wanted to understand what is beyond this death as it pertains to our physical costume. So everybody wanted to find out, what is after death, and the death as an event as it pertains to this costume time scale. So, and even Arjuna, in the battlefield, he was going through all the dharma sankata about, should I kill? Should I have to do this? And he's very worried about the separation of life and the amount of damage. And this is something that we see in our walks of life. And then this is when the Bhagwan Sri Krishna's teachings start. That basically says that they really learn, the people who are established in Sankhya, the right perception, they do not worry about these things. Their one message is, don't worry. And that's where the teaching starts. And then what we've actually seen is, then we started getting into the details about what is Sankhya. The first dimension of the Sankhya is knowing about who am I. That is our true identity. And this is where we actually, as Bhagavan Sri Krishna said, we all are eternal beings. Our true identity, as we know as Purusha, the self or the soul, we are eternal. In other words, we never had a beginning or we never had an end. We're always eternal. That is the first dimension. So what that means is, don't worry. So that means, if you ever have to worry about, what happens to me after life, or, or to me or the people around me, all that stuff is that we are all eternal beings. We're all eternal beings. And then the second thing that we said is, there's Bhagavad Gita gave, some nice metaphors, just like how we, as we are growing up, how we change clothes. We change the worn clothes or, broken clothes, or as we outgrow, how we change from one costume to the other. Just like, the self is going to change one costume after the other. It assumes, one body, and when it's worn out, it actually assumes in a different body. But the self is always eternal. And then the beautiful shlokas that we looked at was, Vasam sajirnani yada vihaya navani grihnati naroparani tada sharirani vihaya jirna anyani samyati navani dehe. So tada sharirani vihaya jirna. So when this this body gets worn out for whatever the reason. And again, we kind of looked at in the karma yoga, based on the types of deeds and the gunas, and that has its own kind of the life being. But then the self then goes and accrues namani dehe. It actually puts on a new costume. It puts on a costume, and then this cycle repeats. And then the next dimension of who am I that we looked at is that the self is not only it's eternal, it's always pure. It's always pure, and it's always is reposed in the bliss. Anytime we are reposed away from the bliss, that means we are not in the realm of the self. We are not realm in the self, and we're going to look into this when we start looking into the Prakriti. And that's what Bhagavan Krishna said. Nayanam chindanti shastrani, nayanam dahati pavakaha. It cannot be wet, it cannot be burned, and it cannot be broken into pieces, and it cannot be cut into pieces. So nashoshayati marataha. So that is, our self is always that Satchit Ananda. It's pure consciousness, and it is bliss. And then what we basically say is whenever we are established in that our true identity of Sankhya, ourself, then for us there is nothing of this roller coaster ride of the sorrow and happiness and all this stuff. We are always reposed in the eternal consciousness and the bliss. Yogastha Kurukarmani. So that's where we summarized it. It is the Swarupa, our true nature is Nitya, which is Sukha Atma. We are eternal, and we are always pure, and we are always joyful, and then we are indivisible. We are indivisible. So that is the one dimension. Now what we're going to do today is the second dimension of our identity, which is where am I? Where am I? And this is where the Prakriti comes into the play. The Prakriti comes into the play. And before we begin, there are some terminology. In the Sankhya, there are two primary entities. One is defined as the Purusha, which we have been looking at, which is the who am I, which is the self. The Purusha, the Sanskrit definition of it is the Purasya Ishaha. Purasya Ishaha. That means the one that is dwelling within. The one Puraha, which is the one that is inside, indweller of this body. Body means the costume. The true nature is the one that is sitting within is Purusha. That's the definition. And then the Purusha, there are some of the other synonyms that you use, or Kshetrajna, the knower of the field. The knower of the one Kshetra that we learned earlier is this body, and this is the costume. This knower of the field is Kshetrajna. And then the other Kshetra is the nature around us. The knower of the field, both this body and the field around us, is also known as Kshetrajna. And Purusha is also defined as Atma. Atma is something that is indivisible, and it's one of the attributes, but Purusha is also sometimes referred to as the Atma. It means it is that indivisible entity. And then Drashta. Drashta is the seer, the one that is constantly a witness to everything that's happening around, the constant effervescent, the light of awareness. That is Drashta. Or that is also sometimes known as Drik. In the Vedanta, we sometimes call it a Drigdarsha Viveka, and to separate from the seer and the seen, Drigdarsha Viveka. So Drik or Drashta is also known as the seer. So that's the Purusha. Now Prakriti is, as we parse the Prakriti, it's basically like Kriya means the action, the realm of action. In the Karma Yoga, it says everything that we see is Nakachit Chanamapi. So essentially everything that we see is nothing but a field of action, continuous dynamic quantum action. So Pra is that perpetual. Pra is the perpetual or the complete Krit Aha. So perpetual, complete realm of action is known as Prakriti. Perpetual, complete realm of action is known as Prakriti. So Purusha is the witness, the awareness, and Prakriti is the full field of the action. So those two together is the complete the identity of this being, the Satchitananda. So Prakriti is field of action, and it is the Kshetra. Kshetra is the field of action, which is number one, this body. Like what we say is like Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Just like, there is an inner world and there is an outer world. This is a Kshetra, and then the one around us is an action. And then Prakriti is known as Anatma, that which can be divided. Whereas the Purusha cannot be divided, but Anatma means Prakriti can be cut. But this is an interesting thing. What we see is, we also see that Prakriti is also eternal, and we will see that in just a moment. But Prakriti is something that can be cut into pieces, can be divided and cut. And then that is Drishya, that which is seen. Drashta is the seer, the one of the awareness that is constantly observing everything. And then Drishya is the field of action, the scenery that we're being played into, that we are being played into, that we play into, or that we play with is Drishya. Drik Drashya. In fact, if you watch some of the Sarvapriyananda videos, there are some beautiful meditations, and in the Vedanta, some interesting talks on Drik Drashya Viveka. How do you separate the drishta and the one that is a seer and the seen? To have that viveka, to have that discriminative perception, to be able to transcend that, and then to connect with the self. But again, there are some differences between Sankhya and Vedanta. Today we'll primarily focus on the Sankhya side, and then perhaps in some of the subsequent sessions we could actually look at the Vedanta. So those are the two terms, Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is the witness, the light of awareness within, which is the self, that is the who am I. And Prakriti is the field of action all around us, the scenes that we are part of, the matrix of action, So now what Bhagavan Krishna says, the knowledge of both the who am I, the knowledge of Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, only when you have the knowledge of both, that is the complete knowledge. If you only know about who am I, that does not complete your understanding, that does not complete your total perception. So that's what Bhagavan Krishna says. Kshetrajnam chapi mam viddhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetrakshatrajnanor gnanam yajnanam matam mama. What it means is, only when you have the knowledge of both Kshetra and the Kshetrajna, that's when you have the complete knowledge. You have the complete knowledge, the knowledge of who am I, the knowledge of where am I. And that is what Bhagavan Krishna says. So now let's, the first, the dimension of the Prakriti as it's revealed by Krishna goes something like this. Prakritim Purusham Chaiva Vidyanadu Ubhavapi Vikarasya Gunaschaiva Vidhi Prakriti Sambhavan. What it says is Prakritim Purusham Chaiva, both Purusha and Prakriti, both of them, the self and the Prakriti, both of them do not have any beginning. Both have been ever present. They do not have a beginning, or there is no beginning of time, or there is no end of time. Just like how the Purusha is an eternal being, Prakriti is also eternal. But the Prakriti has certain qualities, which is Vikarascha. Vikara means the one that actually changes. The Prakriti always changes. In fact, in Ayurveda, we call it as Prakriti and Vikriti. Vikriti is different states. Vikarascha gunaschaiva. And Prakriti goes through a bunch of transformation. It's a continuous transformation. and it changes, and it's based on the gunas. And based on the gunas, the Prakriti takes different transformation, and that's how and depending upon the actions and the qualities, and Prakriti is born, and it's continuously changing. Whereas the self is Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma. It's one eternal, it's always pure, it's always consciousness, there is no state, transition. But Prakriti is not like that. Even though Prakriti is eternal, but it's continuously changing, transformation based on the qualities. The one that is very profound insight is, as we see, particularly in the scientific realm, we always look at this universe as something that actually only occurred from the Big Bang. In other words, now as we see it, this cosmos has some 13.7 billion years and so on and so forth. But from the Sankhya side, this Prakriti is eternal. There is no beginning of time. So how is it? How is that? So the way that one way Sankhya explain this is, the Prakriti existed even before the Big Bang. It was in the seed form. It was in the seed form. And then, like, for example, if you look at our body, there is the Stula Sharira and Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, and so on and so forth. Perhaps, before the Big Bang, it was actually existing in the other manifestations, like the Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. So in other words, the Prakriti always had its existence. Just like, when we take birth, all we're doing is we're taking the birth in the gross form, in the physicality. That is what we see. But the Karana Sharira and the Sukshma Sharira have been there with us, for quite some time, right? They are our accumulation. Similarly, our Prakriti is also eternal, but it changes. It changes shape. It changes shape. And then now, what Bhagwan basically says, now starts describing Prakriti. And this is something that is a beautiful learning for me. And it has similar, Sankhya is something that is, almost like a scientific exploration. It has so many parallels to even how our current sciences understand the cosmos. So what Sankhya establishes is that there are some fundamental elements. That this entire universe is made of. And the Prakriti, from the Sankhya's realm, there are about 24 of those tattvas, or the core elements, from which this entire universe, the two kshetras, the Sharira and the field around us, is made up of. And in the laws of physics, I think the science actually says that there are about 34 of these core elements that this entire being is there. Like, the core particles are like the electrons and neutrons and photons and so on and so forth. So there are about 35 of them. Similarly, Sankhya in those times, perhaps they're not known as the elements. What they are may differ, but the beautiful thing is, both scientific perceptions establish that this entire universe, there's so much diverse, the universe, it all comes down to few fundamental elements. So what Bhagavan Krishna said, Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktamevacha Indriyani dashaikam cha Panchendriya gochara. So Bhagwan describes the 24 elements in this sutra. So let's actually look at that from an infographic, and I don't know if you can see that in the font here. But what Bhagwan says is Mahabhutani, what we refer to as the Panchabhutas. One, this Prakriti is manifest as, number one, the first 5 elements are the Mahabhutas. Mahabhutas, or the fire and space and the wind, the five elements that we know of, the Panchabhutas. And then the other one is there is also Indriyani Dashaikamcha. So there was like, five organs of perception, and there are Jnanendriyas, and then there is Karmendriyas, the organs of action, organs of motor actions. Those are the Karmendriyas, and then five perceptory organs, which are the Jnanendriyas, and then the Dashaikamcha. So those organs are controlled by the mind, which is the manas, Dashaikamcha. That's those 10 perceptory organs, both that mean Jnanendriya and the Karmendriyas, and one mind, manas. That is one combined, that is a faculty. And then buddhir avyaktam evacha. Ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha. So what it actually says is that in addition to your organs of perception and organs of actions and one mind, there are some avyaktam, there are some unmanifested things that you cannot really perceive with your sensory apparatus. And those are ahankara, that's the ego, and then mahat or buddhi, which is the intelligence. It's the intelligence. And that is known as avyakta, means that do not come into the realm of your sensory perception. And why is that? Because your sensory apparatus can only see certain things, but to be able to make a perception of the total of an emotion, that's when the ahankara and the buddhi, that actually interprets all the signals that are coming in. That means they are the subtlest. Avyaktam means they are the subtlest, unmanifest. They do not come into the realm of the perception. And in fact, what we also refer to as this buddhi, ahankara, and mahat, they are known as antakarana. Antakarana, in other words, they are unmanifested. That means that is something that you cannot see or touch or feel. They are beyond our limited, finite sensory perception. And Patanjali calls it as alinga. Linga means that it has a form. Alinga is one without a form. One without a form of something that we can touch and feel and this stuff. And then there are panchendriya gocharaha. Then there are 5 sense tanmatras. Tanmatra means that alone. And this is a very interesting concept. So we have this sensory perceptions, but then there is something as almost like an equivalent of a neuron that is responsible for each sensory organ to function. And they are linked to the Mahabhutas. They're linked to, like, for example, the fire is linked to your sight. That Mahabhuta holds the capacity, and that lights up our sensory perception of seeing. And that is powered through this tanmatra. Tanmatra is that alone. It is the thing that is powering the sensory organs. And the way it works is, like, for example, there is a beautiful metaphor. Like, for example, if you want to measure something, it has to be subtlest than what is being measured. Like, for example, if you want to measure an electron, you cannot use a scale to go measure an electron. To be able to understand and perceive it, the perceptory instrument needs to be more subtler than the thing that is being measured, or the thing that is functioning. So just like, if you want to measure an electron, what you need to understand is something even finer, the more subtler. So the tanmatras are those subtler and the finer ones that is actually powering the sensory organs. So there are 5 tanmatras, and each one of them is linked to the 5 sensory perceptions, and then they all get powered by one of the five Panchabhutas, and it's a beautiful concept. But the drama that we see, the scenery, the drishya that we see is being perceived by this tanmatras, gyanendriyas, karmendriyas, and mahabhutas, and being interpreted by the manas. And then once the scene is presented, then it adds some color. Then we add some color by the ahankara and buddhi. And that is the final image that is being presented to the drishta, the seer. And that final TV image, after like in the movie, right? We mix the sound and we mix the photography and we mix the dialogue and background score and everything comes together. And then the final movie frame is being presented to the seer. And the seer enjoys the movie. And let me pause here and let's see if anybody has any thoughts or comments to add to this.
I just want to know if I've understood correctly. So basically, it's like water filtration system. It goes through different filtration to get to the seer. Is my understanding correct?
So why the filtration? Filtration is
not filtration, different layers to get to the water, like going to the underground water, like it goes
exactly. It could be like instead of just says like water just flowing. As it flowing, it adds different dimensions to it. So filtration means you're actually, perhaps there's a connotation of purification or something. So basically it's like, but actually if you assume the filter for what it is, like an iPhone filter or photo filter, each filter has certain element of an emotion or some judgment, some labeling. So it goes through, and it is that filtering comes from ahankara and buddhi. Everything else is being perceived based on the sensory apparatus or the capability of the perception. Then the ahankara and the mahat adds the different filters. It's based on your condition. And of course, there is an element of your sensory apparatus could also be performing at different conditions, based on like, whether somebody has their hearing being powered properly or not, but that is again conditioning. So the one is the gyanendriyas, the karmendriyas, the tanmatras powered by the Panchabhuta is presenting the scene, right? It's based on the scientific perception of what is the image is. Then the buddhi and ahankara adds filters. That is based on our gunas and karmas, or the impressions. And then the final.
Is it a two-way communication, like buddhi and prakriti, right? It's two-way communication.
So everything is actually being part of
prakriti and okay, yeah.
Everything is part of that. That's the whole faculty is interconnected.
Okay.
Right. That's a final editing table. Prakriti is the full, whatever is called, is the director, the final movie. Right. With the Prakriti is the director. But the movie is made for the Purusha. And the movie is made for the Purusha. Actually, and we'll actually see it. And then I have a little bit of a funny observation. The interesting thing is all of us are made of both. We have the two dimensions. We have the Purusha, the drashta within, who is interpreting all the images that are being presented, not the images, but it's the movies that are being presented. And then Prakriti is responsible for the movie making. And then we have all these Gyanendriyas, Karmendriyas, Tanmatras, and then Mahabhutani, all those things powered by, or the final sound room comes in, is like the editing table is when we add some ahankara and then intellect. And then the movie is made. Most of the director says like the actual movie is made on the editing table. Perhaps, that's where the antakarana is, where the real editing room. Whatever somebody might shot, but on the editing table is when the real movie gets made. So that's what happens. Ramakanchi, am I interpreting correctly?
Yeah, I missed a little bit, but I think right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that is what is happening within us. What is happening within us now? Let me go back to this. There's a beautiful question in one of the classes that Sri Ramji did. And the thing it says like, sometimes we refer to intuition or sixth sense. The intuition doesn't go through Prakriti. It's completely bypasses Prakriti. It's directly powered through Purusha. Purusha directly perceives things, short-circuiting this entire movie, this colored movie. And that's what we sometimes refer to as samyama. Samyama is the secret for the total control of the Prakriti. And it's a secret to excellence. So for that samyama to occur, sometimes we always hear these things. It's just like my intuition is telling me something. And the thing that I always say is like, if you are relying on the intuition, the first thing to check is whether you are in that state, the samyama state, where your mind is in this without chitta vritti nirodha. You can only rely on your intuition when your chitta, when your prakriti is totally at rest or in the harmonious state. Sometimes we actually believe that we have a sixth sense that is powering us, but that is actually, most of the sixth sense is still being powered by intellect. It's based on our impressions or anxieties and things like that. It is a reflection of the chitta, but sometimes we mistake that for an intuition. The Purusha, when the self, when it is in that samyama state, that means your mind is in the dharana dhyana samadhi. That means you are in that harmonious and equilibrium and the focused mind. And then at that time, then what happens is then the Purusha starts acting. The self gets exhibited in our thoughts and our actions. Then that action becomes residue free. Tatra dhyanaja manashayam. And that actions, those thoughts are always true. They always yield the total power. So this is as an interesting distinction. So all the other things, intuition doesn't come into the realm of the Prakriti. So everything that happens in the Prakriti is powered by Ankara and intelligence and your impressions and the sensory and then the 24 elements. And when we take on the yoga journey, we basically, we build the capability of the samyama so that we have complete governance, control and the governance on the Prakriti. So that is the inner peace and outer dynamism. When you are in the harmony and then you act, and then you basically use all the capabilities on the faculties of that you have, and then you go play in the kshetras. And that always results in exuberance and excellence. Does this make sense? The difference between intuition and the Prakriti powered actions?
So why can't we always, Prakriti is there for a reason, I guess, and intuition is there for a reason. And I'm sure everybody can resonate. Every time we ignore intuition and we use Prakriti, I'm not saying we end up in disaster all the time, but it so happens you end up in disaster. I can only speak for myself. So So is it saying that we should not involve Prakriti at all and try and get into a state where we can only use intuition?
Exactly. That's our ultimate goal. The
Then
thing is,
Prakriti becomes redundant, isn't it?
no. Actually, this is a beautiful question. What we have got, I mean, this is a game. So when we are in this costume, that entire yoga is you have to use the Prakriti. You have to use your body and the mind to actually make the mind to be in that samyama state. Chitta vritti nirodha. Then the intuition comes into the play. Then you let the intuition to come forth. So the Prakriti is there for a reason. And we'll see that in one of the shlokas. Prakriti is there to, number one, give us all the experiences of all the movies. And then that movies actually get us through all the roller coaster of the emotions of joy and sorrow and, all the kind of avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, vinivesha, and all the kind of the kleshas. But Prakriti is also the ability that we have, the 24 elements that we have. But actually is only humans have this greatest capability to use Prakriti to transcend Prakriti, so that we get connected back to get repose back with the Purusha, so that we can then become like that Aham Brahmasmi and then act with the full intuition. And that we will see in the thing. So the reason why the Prakriti, in fact, even if you look at even Sankhya and Vedanta, where it says like you have to use the mind to transcend the mind. And only humans are given this capability. All the others do not have this entire Prakriti of the buddhi and ahankara, and they only go through the sensory apparatus and live their life. But in the humans, we are given the Prakriti, the more intelligent Prakriti in our body and the field around us. So we have to use that capability to transcend the Prakriti, so that we then become one. We become that self. Did I answer your question, Savitashi?
Yeah, I did. But I feel the Prakriti always, I don't know, it's like, how do you say? It's a distraction. It creates distraction more than helping to get into intuition.
Yeah, both in the sense. So I think, like somebody I was hearing about this similar point of tamas, rajas, and all that stuff, right? So when we discuss about this, whenever we get into these conversations, people talk about there should be sattva in our work that we do, agree. But I was listening to one of the mentors. I was really surprised where he said, well, whatever the role, wherever, then that is good as well. In the sense, only if we have tamas, we can actually sleep. If we do not have the concept of tamas within us, then you don't get into sleep, then you're awake throughout the night. So each one has his own role. Like you're saying, Uddharedatmanatmanam natmanam avasade. The 6th chapter, 7th shloka talks about your mind can be a friend to you, or it can be an enemy, right? How you use it. And these are the means, like what Sriniji is intending for us is, these are the means. If you do not have a hand, we cannot pick that Bhagavad Gita book. If we do not have eyes and ears, Sriniji, your volume, if you're talking to us, we are not able to hear you, by the way.
I see. The one
now yes. Yeah.
The one thing is, so one thing to add to it, the simplest thing that it says, like, as Patanjali said, yoga, chitta, vritti, nirodha. That is, the journey of yoga is to remove this obstacle of the mind, of the impressions. And then the thing is, the chitta is there to create all the images, but when the vrittis create all this viparyaya and all the 5 tendencies of the mind, then that is where you have the filters. You're going through the ripples. The entire journey of getting into the meditation, dhyana, and the samadhi is that we purify the mind, remove the avarna of the mind. And that is the reason why we have all this knowledge or all these paths, whether it's a bhakti yoga, karma yoga, jnana yoga, and raja yoga, all these tools are given to us so that we basically, and these are the tools that can be only used and practiced in the realm of the Prakriti. And then, but these are the paths that allow us to be in the Prakriti, to transcend the Prakriti, so that we are always, we can actually even transcend. The thing is, in the Prakriti, we have the threes, Sattva, Tamas, and Rajas. But then the ultimate state is, we actually become Gunatita. We don't get swayed by it. Everything has its a role, but we become the Vishesha Purusha, Tatparam Purusha Khyate, Gunavaitrushna. Yeah. And that's when we become the Krishna Tattvam. That's when we become Krishna. So, but I think, why don't we go through a few of these, some Yoga Sutras and Bhagavad Gita. But the question that you asked is the legend. That's the same question that Arjuna asked, which is like, you make it sound so easy, but this mind is like, like a tornado. How can I control this mind? How can I control this Prakriti? That I'm being played into this thing, and I don't always need to be, like the Kurukshetra, I'm not always reposed in that inner peace. So where my mind is always at calm, at ease in every situation, in all the things, that I'm always be joyful. And that's what, then Bhagavan says, like, Arjuna, you are not alone. It is very true. Everybody has the same thing. And Savita and all of us, when we ask this question, when the skilled warrior like an Arjuna, where he himself is expressed that vulnerability, but he had the awareness, he had the seeking, he had the seed. And that is the reason why the Jnana, the Krishna Tattvam came to him. There was like folks like Duryodhana, there was no that mumukshatvam, there is no that intense longing. So even though there was an awareness, but the tools that did not come to him. The fact that we are here and sharing it, that means we are just like the Arjuna, we are expressing our vulnerability, that this mind is difficult, this Prakriti is difficult to control. But then the Krishna is coming through us and sharing is like, hey, here are the tools that you have. Here's a yoga, here is a bhakti, here's a celebration, do some seva, and then do some seva and bhakti, and learn about all this Sankhya and Vedanta. So I'm giving you all these capabilities, and the fact that we are putting an effort in itself is a good thing. So again, what Bhagavan Krishna says, Karya karana kartritve hetur prakriti ruchyate Purusha sukha dukkhanam bhoktritve hetu ruchyate. So this is where Bhagavan literally explains the two roles. Right? So the role of the Prakriti is to create playing the role of cause and effect, which is take the body and the organs and the nature and the gunas that we have, ahankara, and then produce a movie to be consumed by the seer. In fact, Prakriti serves Purusha. This entire Prakriti is being created only to serve a movie. It's a movie making machine. And then the Purusha is the enjoyer of that experience, both good and bad. The experience actually, this is an interesting dimension. The actual emotion, the good or bad is actually experienced by the Purusha, but that is in the realm of the Prakriti. The true identity of the Purusha is there is emotion. There is only one emotion, right? Which is Nitya Sucha Sukha Anna. This is like, eternal bliss. But when we are playing in the Kshetra, Purusha is simply watching and is going through. It is actually the one that is creating the final effect, which is like, oh, this is dukkha, this is sukha, and all that stuff. And then the prakriti just, goes on, reacting to it, basically acting and reactions based on the emotions. Here is one funny thought that I had. This
Srini,
is,
I have a quick thing that I wanted to ask/add.
oh, please.
From my understanding, Purusha does not ever classify anything good or bad. It's just witnesses. There is no good or bad. Everything is just what is. That is my understanding.
Actually, that is what initially I thought, because the Purusha is also the true identity, as we said, Nitya Suchi Sukha, which is like, Ananda, Satchit Ananda, which is like there is only always reposed in the bliss. But from the realm of the Prakriti, the Purusha is the one, because we actually get accumulated with some of the dimensions of the awareness of the impressions and the karma sharira and all the things that come in, and then it actually finally enjoys the experience. I mean, there is one school of Sankhya says the self willingly, because want to play the game of life, willingly blindfolds itself to go through all these experiences. And Purusha has this capability. It's so free that it can choose bondage. And that is and because of that, this Prakriti and everything is created.
Because Purusha cannot experience anything without Maya or Prakriti, right? Everything is happening in Prakriti. Without that, it's like not having a screen to play.
Exactly. So basically, the self is so free from that thing when it's almost like blindfold to play the game of life. Then the one kind of gets into two. I mean, this is how even the Vedanta Advaita says, like the one chooses to play and then becomes the Purusha and Prakriti. And then the Prakriti creates all these movies for the enjoyment of the Purusha. And then the game, once you realize the truth, that right, this game is good enough, I get tired of all this movie. And then this becomes one again. And then you become Nitya Suchi Sukha. So it is, the thing is, Prakriti is there to serve the Purusha. The kind of different movie.
Yes, my understanding is the same.
Yeah. So it is basically, but the thing is, it's the self that is actually going through all the moods. It's just like us, right? We basically go and then we watch a nice comedy movie or a thriller movie and all these kind of movies. And then some days, like, we get tired of all these movies. It's just like, I'm done. And then you just become, the
sometimes that's why I keep, I'm sure other people, not necessarily this group, or, is there free will? Like, am I being played or am I the player?
But the thing is, the interesting thing that it basically says is, this is what even Patanjali says. There are 2 Yoga Sutras. First, it's like, Drushti matraha shuddhopi pratyaya anupashyaha. So what it means is the seer, drishta, is a witness, is a power of seeing, that it has a power of watching the movie. All the pure, the pure anupashyaha, it is actually, pratyaya is the image. Pratyaya is the movie that is made by the Prakriti. The pratyaya, the Purusha simply watches every movie that is being presented to it. And then it's kind of simply has this smirk of going through all these motions. Oh, okay, you are going through this, a thriller movie, you're going through this, happy movie and this stuff. But Purusha is putting that light of awareness. Without the Purusha, you do not even have the capability to know what is, good or bad. It just puts the light on this entire instruments that you have, and then basically watches the movie and it enjoys the the drama that this costume is going through. And tadeva tadartha eva drushas maha drushasya atma drushasya atma. Atma here is being used as the completeness. It's not the definition of the indivisible, right? So basically, it's just like the only reason for the existence of the Prakriti is to serve the seer, serve the Purusha, to continuously produce the movies. And then when we then get into the meditation, when we use this Prakriti and the body and the mind, and we see that, we get sometimes, tired of these movies, right? When the kids would want to go to Disney World, we're all the kids. We want to go to the roller coaster. But how long can you stay in the Disney and play the roller coaster? At some point, the kids also, as much as they would want to do it, they get tired. And then when you get tired, what is the thing that you need to do? You have to follow the path of yoga. One of the 4 yogas that you need to do it. And then you just get back to, just like, I'm done with the playing. But some of us, that avidya is actually, avidya is so ramen. We basically, it's like, now it's not Disney. Let me actually go to Universal Studios, and we keep on going and going and going. And someday, we all realize, like, is enough of this drama.
Does this mean there is no action, or like, does this mean there is inaction, or there is action, but you know that its impact is neither? Like,
exactly. When we look in the karma yoga, right, which is like, karmanyesa, akarmanyasa, akarmanyasa. So it's like those with the knowledge of the yoga, those who can see inaction in action, action in inaction. In other words, you indulge. You indulge is like, you participate and you engage in all the activities, but make sure that they do not have any residue. It's like, they are not rooted in either raga, they are not rooted in avidya, they are not rooted in asmita, they're not rooted in dvesha, they are not rooted in
Dvesha,
abhinivesha.
I was going to say.
Right? Those 5 kleshas. Right? Why would they come? Because when you participate in the life, if they are only there to maximize your finiteness of this body, because I want to prolong it, I want to live longer with this costume. No, again, that's ignorance. You already know that you are an eternal being. The reason why you're playing is you just want to do the right thing in the moment. Forget about, it's not to add some extra, movements into your physicality. Or asmita, it's not, these actions are not rooted in serving myself or the people around me that are close to me, my family, my associations, my passions. Raga, the things that you like, or intense likes, or the things that you intensely hate, or abhinivesha, fear of losing. Anytime when you are acting with those 5 kleshas, then your lease in the Disney world gets extended. But, you just go, I want to go, eat some laddu. At the moment laddu comes in, you enjoy it. But next time when it becomes a raga, then that's a problem. Then you're going to get some more time in the playground. So I think just in the moment, acting the way it is. The acting, and it is not any action that you do any action that you do that does not result in a profit and loss chatter for you or people around you, or the thing that are close to you. I think then it becomes like, then it becomes a purest action. And then you also don't have a sense of doership. You don't have a sense of doership. Oh, I am doing this. You just go participate. There are faculties. You just do it. And then you are karmanyevadikaraste mafaleshu kadachana. So you just flow through every aspect of life in the moment, get the exuberance, but don't let that leave an impression and then carry it forward. I think those types of, that is what the path of karma yoga. But the Sankhya Yoga gives the reasoning for why. Because it clearly, so Sankhya Yoga gives an foundation of, okay, this is the Purusha, this is the Prakriti, you are being playing into it, this is unreal, this is being driven by these 24 elements, but the real identity is the Purusha, that is eternal and the bliss. And this Prakriti is here. So it's actually giving the clarity of the Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. And then why am I here is a karma yoga, but it also gives the recipe, which is like, now what do I do about it? And that is what the Bhagavad Gita's complete picture. And the Yoga Sutra. So it basically is like putting through this entire realm that we are in, the matrix of the world that we are in, and then it's parsing it out to, it's like, hey, your identity is really the self. You are eternal being. You're always joyful. But then this field that you are in, Kshetra and Kshetrajna, is made up of these parts. And then I'm given you this capability in the Prakriti, the same Mahat, and the body and the organs. These are the ones that actually allow you to do asana so that you can reduce the conflicts. Tato dvandva anabhigataha. Then when you do the pranayama, what it basically says is, because tatakshiyate prakashavarnam, the tamas gets reduced. The other one reduces the rajas. And then when you follow the yama and niyama, then it actually reduces the chatter. Then that prepares you into the dhyana state. And then the dhyana state is when you get into that, is when tatra dhyanajam anashayam. Then it becomes a residue-free kind of an action. Then with that continuous application of dhyana, gets into samyama, and then the samyama gives you the ability to then act with Purusha. Even though you have the faculties, but the Purusha is powering the intuitive intelligence in your actions. Like what the Krishna. Krishna doesn't have to have a computer to tell you, put a calendar appointment. He just goes into a situation. He just does it with a smile. And we are all Krishnas. So again, Patanjali says, am I making sense, Savitaji?
Yeah, a bit confusing though. Yeah, I need to sort out in my own head, I guess.
I see.
Yeah.
I think, some of this stuff makes sense in the jnana part, and to put that into the practice in the real world is a real game, right? And this is the jnana yoga, and we will actually get into it. So,
but even okay, I understand Purusha, I understand Prakriti, understand intelligence, and understanding all these things as one, and letting experience flow to you through whatever medium it is, and then using the Purusha, can we not take a decision or react? Why do I have to participate using the Prakriti?
That's a good question, right?
Because when I say that, people say, oh, that is inaction.
Yeah, the thing is, here is the deal, right? We don't even have a choice. Naikaschit kshanamapi. We already says, like, we are every moment, every situation, we are in the matrix of action. The fact that we have taken this role or this costume means we are.
Yeah, I understand. Even the absorption is an action. That means it is the vastusthiti. And then you're saying, okay, when it flows, then the Purusha, if you are in the right alignment, Purusha. But why is it perceived as a inaction? Perceived in the sense like.
Because, what is an action versus inaction? There's a simple thing, right? Inaction, and one dimension of inaction is you feel effortless. Action feels like you're putting an effort. Inaction.
But that is perceived as inaction. Why that is perceived as inaction?
Because, for the other person, it looks like, there is no effort that is coming. Like, when somebody is looking at, like, let's look at the image of Krishna, as we know from the stories, right? It feels like, the dude doesn't do much. He's always singing, dancing, playing, and all the kind of stuff, right? He's always dressed very nicely. And all the other people around him are like seeming to work very hard. But the thing is, because he's operating in that higher state of the samyama state, and some of us, we see that. And sorry, I'm probably going on a tangent, but I'll connect it back to it. The Patanjali's way of even definition of meditation. What do we assume? When somebody is meditation, one of the misperception or the myth that we have is meditation means somebody goes into the mountains and become a monk, and then it's just like sitting at rest, devoid of everything. But that's not the real definition of meditation. It says, Tatra pratyaya ekatanata dhyanam. It is a continuous flow of action towards one fixed image, one pursuit. Its meditation is actually the continuous dynamic flow of action. It's like the laminar flow of oil that is pouring in. But it's not a static. It is not an inaction. But that is like, your mind is not going in many different directions. You just fixed your thing in one pursuit, one pratyaya. But that pratyaya is what is being presented to the seer, Purusha, every moment. And it is like this moment to the next moment to the next moment. It is the same movie that is being presented to the Purusha. That state is called meditation, because there is no leakage that's happening. Because every thought that is being produced, every movie that's being produced is a leakage of energy. When you train your mind to be producing the same image from here to next moment and next moment, then what's happening is that's when you are controlling the entire Prakriti on one single thing. And at that time, you actually don't feel effort, even though that you are actually pursuing in that one object. And this is what we have even seen from a Mihalay Flow theory. When they are operating in a flow state, they transcend the sense of time. They transcend the sense of doership, and they get situated in the joyful state. So for an outsider, like, when you look at the laminar flow, when the oil is being flowed, when you see it from the side, it almost feels like a static image. But it's actually continuous pour, that ripple-free pour is actually happening. So when our mind becomes the diamond, for the mind to be the diamond, we also need to have control over our organs. We need to control over buddhi. We need to control our mahat. And this is a complete process to take control of the Prakriti. And at that time, when we have the total control of the Prakriti, with our gunas and with our deeds, and Patanjali laid out an Ashtanga Yoga. I think that is probably the most systemic way. But of course, there is also other Bhakti Yoga, Karma Yoga, and other paths also there. But the Ashtanga Yoga is a very comprehensive, path, and it's very brilliantly conceived. And that actually ultimately gets you to that state of action in action. So, and sometimes when we go into this thing, this definition of Purusha and Prakriti, and I heard one person says, like, my interpretation of Prakriti and Purusha is they associated with genders. What an ignorance. And then they basically look at this as like, yeah, that is the reason feminine is here to serve the masculine gender. They are here to serve. And the masculine is there to just simply enjoy the experiences. And that's why the reason, all the, household chores are done by the feminine, because, they are the feminine. Prakriti is what an utter rubbish. This is the composition of every one of our being, the human being, that we have Purusha and we have Prakriti. And the Prakriti is the experience maker, the movie maker, and Purusha is the experience consumer.
But if you keep the same name for 4 roads, how will GPS know which road to go? I think they shouldn't have called Purusha Prakriti for the literal meaning as well. Maybe they should have used a different.
No, this is actually, that's the reason why I explained the definitions. Purascha Ishasa is the Purusha. That's how they defined it, which is like the indweller of the body. And then Prakriti is like, the realm of action, Prakriya, the one that is perpetually caught in action is Prakriti. It's just that the after hack of, this is Advaita or some of these people, because I think, our eternal beings, the saints, conceive this with absolute brilliant, technology and the science to emancipate all of us, to give us the ultimate freedom and the most exuberant life. And then the people with avidya, or driven by some of the other motives and some social engineering, then they basically mapped it to Prakriti is this, a feminine, Purusha is this. And then once that happened, then everybody started assuming it. I mean, for a wrong moment, I was trying to interpret that way. Oh, that's what feminine energy is there to serve, this stuff. That is the reason why this is being happening. Oh, that's why there are the roles. This is the nature's dharma and the stuff. That is like, but when somebody is like, puts it out there with the Sankhya, samkhyaYoga prakashayate, Purusha is Purusha. Oh, that's what is there in Savitaji, Umaji, Ramakanji, and this. We all have Purusha inside. And then Prakriti is all the apparatus that we have to experience movie making. So that is what I think, we anybody that actually tries saying this Prakriti and Purusha in this kind of a gender-based roles, we should simply say it's like asankhya, avidya. And then we simply say it's like, and then we can bring them to this class. So, the thing here is, when we are powering through the Purusha, is that the Purusha powered intuitive power, all the actions seem effortless. Whenever we have a sense of doership in any action, it means we are being controlled or influenced by the Purusha. Right? And then the thing that it also says, right now, what we say is like, we establish the roles. But the other big thing is the Purusha actually is the one that has the capability to influence Prakriti. And Purusha is the reason why Prakriti is even functioning. And for that, there is a big metaphor, like, that just like how the solar system, just by its presence, just the radiance presence, that is the essence for all this existence to even play. Just like the Purusha is the reason why this Prakriti gets into action. Prakriti is powering through. So, yada prakashayate ekaha krishnam lokam imam ravihi kshetram kshetrittada krishnam prakashayati bharata. So just like how a Ravi is illuminating this entire world, is the reason for this entire existence, all the planet and the existence, and it's the radiance. And the sun might look like a nice ball, but inside the sun, it is very dynamic. It's very radiant. And that radiant, just by being there, and that the radiance is reason this entire existence, this entire Prakriti is being put into action. Just like the Purusha within is the reason why this entire Prakriti, the organs and Jnanendriyas and the Karmendriyas, Buddhi, Mahat, all these things are being led. And that is constant. And the other metaphor is just like the solar system. What is the sun? How is the sun powering this entire planet and then the entire existence? Sometimes it's like the sunlight, the solar light is the reason why all this is. That's like the prana. Even in our own body, that it's the prana that actually illuminates all our buddhi and even brings clarity to our mind and so that our organs perform to the best thing. That is the reason why we say pranayama, the control of the prana is the one that actually removes all the avarnam from your buddhi, so that we have the ability to start perceiving the things the way they are. And then what Bhagavan concludes in the Sankhya Yoga, it says, Sankhya Yoga pritak balaha pravadanti na panditaha Ekam pyayastit samyaga samyak ubayor vindate phalam. What it means is Sankhya and Yoga. By Yoga, what it means is the Karma Yoga. Only the Bala, Pratak Balaha, they think that these two are different. The path of knowledge and the path of Karma Yoga, selfless and self-empowerment action, these two are different. And what that means is people that actually believe that sometimes they interpret Sankhya Yoga means I just cannot act, just be dormant and in a state of inertness. And what Bhagavan says, it's only the fools, the unlearned ones, speak of the Sankhya and the Yoga, the Karmasha Kaushalam, that the Karma Yoga are different. Anyone who actually resorts to one with the proper understanding and then incorporates into the other can achieve me or can realize me. The Krishna means that's who you are, the Tadatmanam, the self within. Krishna is nothing but the Purusha within, the Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma, the inner peace. And that's what is Bhagavad Gita says, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Pardo Danudaraha, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. That inner peace and outer dynamism. Those who are reposed in this. So this entire knowledge of Sankhya and the Karma Yoga is given so that we can then effortlessly and joyfully play in this playground. And that's what we said. Karmanya karmaya pashyet akarmani cha karmayaha sabuddhiman manasyesu sa yukta krishna karma krita krishna karma krita. Sorry, krishna karma krita. That's what we were talking earlier. Those who are established in that inner peace and outer dynamism, and those folks who can see action and inaction, and inaction in action. And with that viveka, when we participate and engage in this world, right, that's when we become Krishna. We become Krishna. And that's what we've seen in one of the graphics, which is the path is not to simply go surrender yourself to the mountains and then, close your thing and then doing the contemplation of this. That is one path, but the path that is even better, that some of the role models that I am super inspired with, like the path of Vivekananda, the path of Shankaracharya, or path of even Buddha, or any one of them, they try to make this world be a better place. They try to make this world be a better place. In other words, how do we, number one, result that ultimate joy within by being in the world, by engaging in all the activities, by engaging in your domestic responsibilities. But only thing is, just rid of the filters of asmita, avidya, raga, dvesha, and asmita. Then everything becomes so joyful. Everything becomes that you get to be lazy then at that time. So that is where is the Sankhya kind of concludes. It basically answers the question of who am I? The self, which is all of us are nothing but Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma. And then the Sankhya shines light on Prakriti. And then which explains this entire existence and establishes the role of Prakriti and Purusha. Prakriti is made of 24 elements, and that produces all the kinds of movies to serve the Purusha. And the Purusha is the Bhoga Apavarga. Actually, the Patanjali Sutra, this is something that we should all memorize. And it's a very profound sutra, which I simply skipped over. Prakasha Kriyasthiti Sailam Bhutendriya Atmakam Bhoga Apavargartam Drishyam. Bhoga Apavargartam Drishyam. Bhoga Apavargartam. Bhoga is for that experience of the different movies. Apavargartam is the liberation, is the free from all these movies experiences, free from this notion of good or bad of all the movie experiences. The Drishyam is there, the Prakriti is there to with all the kriya and the organs and sthiti and xylem and of all the gulas and all these things. The drishyam is the prakriti. It is there to create the bhoga. It is to create the experience, but also to create the apavargartam. Apavarga is the freedom to get reposed in our own self, to liberate, to set us free. What a beautiful game that is designed. The one becomes two, and with this one is an experienced consumer, the other one is a movie maker, and then you can get as many movies that you want. But the thing is, if you keep on enjoying it, you get to play for a long time. But when you get the buddhi, the viveka, but that is also again the drishyam, the prakriti is there. That is the only tool that you have to set yourself free, to get back to your true self. And this is the game that the creation can create. Right? You have to use the tools within the game to set yourself out of the game. You have to use like a matrix or inception. You have to go into the inception to break free of the inception. Right? You have to use the movie to get off the movie or something like that. But that is what Patanjali defines it as. And the other interesting thing is the difference between Vedanta and Sankhya. Sankhya and Yoga Patanjali say that this Prakriti is not an illusion. They say that this Prakriti is real. Purusha is real, Prakriti is real, and both are eternal. And the thing here is you basically then go use the Prakriti to get back into that one seed form. Both just get united into get in the seed form, which we can actually say that is perhaps is more like a the Hiranyagarbha in the Vishnu Sahasrama says Hiranyagarbha in that seed, where both Purusha and Prakriti are united in that one Hiranyagarbha seed. And then from there, you want to play, and then you bring this into Hiranyagarbha, Bhugarbha, just like then you can actually break yourself into this, just have fun, and then again get our act together and get to samyama using one of these paths, and then we again get back to their one sense. So this is a perspective as I understood it. This is my interpretation based on my life experiences, based on Sri Ram GC teachings and my self-study. This is how a perspective that's out there. Any questions, comments, and thoughts?
I didn't know about all these things, so thank you for all the homework, and I'm sure there's a lot of investigative or thought process has gone behind this. So thank you for this.
So basically, ultimately, this is not an intellectual exercise. The thing is, we answered the 2 or 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I? Now with that comprehension, we also gave the recipes for, and then the third one is, why am I here? Which is also talked about in the Karma Yoga. But then ultimately, the goal is not to just get an intellectual experience. It's just like, now what do I do about it? And that's where the crux of this is. That's where the Karma Yoga, some of the things that you said. And then a lot of these people, like Madhusudan Saraswati says, instead of actually going to the mountains, those are let the monks go surrender to the mountains and meditate and this stuff. For me, just being in the world and enjoying every moment. Bhaktyadi kalpitam advaitam mati sundaram. But it has to be rooted in the right knowledge of the Purusha, Prakriti, and what is the thing. One, and then the sense of oneness. From there you go effortlessly participate in this life is what is the beautiful thing that is being revealed to us by those rishis. And I don't think there is any other scripture or any other human exploration that answered all these 3 questions and finally gave a recipe on how how one could lead an exuberant life for themselves and for the people around them. So that's the greatness of the roots that we're all part of. So thank you so much for your encouragement, and because of all of you, and I get to explore this myself, and then as I'm sharing this with whatever I know, I'm actually learning. This is just simply my self-study, and I'm enjoying it. Any other things? And I see that we have a new attendee here. Vijay, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I think as Ramakant ji, who's on this session as well. I've been attending his session, and he's the one he introduced about your session. So I joined for the first time today. I know Ramakant from several years, for 6 years now, and recently been a little bit trying to learn something. Ramakant has been guiding me on the spiritual path, and it's really great. It's really a pleasure to connect with you all.
We're an excellent group, and then we all inspire each other. All of us are sincere seekers. From of course, Ramakanji, Savitaji, and Umaji joined us about a month ago, or a little over a month ago. But we all have been together for quite some time. We'd love to have you as part of our regular satsangs.
Thank you.
So any other closing thoughts?
Last question. Hopefully, it's the last question. So somebody who has no awareness of this Purusha Prakriti and how it is one, and how our actions are, where it's derived from. So somebody who is just leaving, like, get up in the morning, brush your teeth, like Ramana does. So they're all acting from a Prakriti perspective, like just see what it is there. And okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead with your question.
Sorry, that was, sorry, are you able to hear me?
No, we only said,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, we heard till like somebody who is not aware of it, they're just daily going through the motion in the realm of Prakriti, but we didn't hear the second part of the question.
Oh, so everyday action without having any awareness of this, like I didn't know the awareness of this, right? Without being aware of it, so all our actions comes from just a Prakriti, like when Panchendriyas, and that's it. Like, what we see, I see here is light, there is sun, there is moon, just recognizing and reacting, not even acting, reacting to the situation. That's how we all are doing
that. But there is also other thing, right? There's a Mahat, intelligence, and Ahankara, and they're all made of all your previous impressions and whatever the Karma Yoga, right? You come with some operating system. What it actually Sankhya says is there is a difference between Sankhya and Vedanta. Vedanta believes that there is only one soul. Sankhya believes that there are multiple souls. Each one of us is a soul. Okay? But how are we different? And all of us have what is the real definition of Sankhya? What is the definition of Nitya Sucha Sukha Atma? We are all like our true identities. We're all of the same. But what makes us separate is the baggage that we carry. In the playground, we all accumulate some baggage. Like, it's like some tokens. The tokens are based on the actions and the previous lives and so on and so forth. So that's all kind of our Sanchita karma and the Prarabdha karma. Only the karma baggage, when it's added to the self, that makes us different. So all our actions are powered by that memory. So we all go through those emotions, right? It's not just seeing what light is, what color is, and so on and so forth. It is that powered by our ahankara and intelligence. That is all made up of the memories. That basically drives our day-to-day motion. And then we think that is what it is, all the real, right? And then that gives a sense of doership. And he says, like, I work so hard. That's why I got an MSET rank of 44. So that means I'm intelligent. And I work so hard and I bought this stock and I got $1 million. That's the reason I'm smarter than rest. at best, tough luck. So that is where, but what happens is most of us don't have an awareness, or even, and then some of us, like what you sometimes refer to, there are some life situations, like, for example, Arjuna never really questioned this, right? He was just going through the life as he was going through it. He was in the forest, he was doing the best effort based on, because he has a reasonably good karma quota. He was like, doing all the right things. He was going to the forest, and he was not doing the things. He was trying to lead a reasonable thing. But even then, he was a conditioned being. And then suddenly there is a life situation that's put forth him, and then he gets into dharma sankata. Then the seed got cracked. And then when the seed gets cracked, some of us explore the knowing. Explore the knowing of the path. And then when your effort is sincere, then the universe is there to serve you. It actually helps you to be on the journey to repose in yourself. There are so many paths that are out there. It's just that we get so much sucked into our drama that is being created by the sensory apparatus, and then powered by the memory, which is from the Sanchita karma. But at some point, some situations are presented to you to get the cracking. And then people take it. And what type of an incident that you need to crack open the seed is different. It all depends on, that all varies from conditioned souls to souls, conditioned beings. Like somebody from Buddha, all he needed was just seeing the sight of somebody with wrinkled skin, somebody who's coughing, somebody who's on the deathbed. That's all he needed. And somebody like Ramana Maharshi, when he was so young, he thought he was going to die. I mean, he's literally, felt like he was about to die. And that's all he needed. And some of us need continuous bricks being thrown at us. Apparently, somebody used this metaphor for me. Apparently, the universe, the creator in this game, first throws some small pebbles at you. And then if you use the pebble, like what Buddha and others, they had a gentle pebbles, cotton pebbles, perhaps. They were being thrown at them, and they were like, oh my God, this is something like the game that I'm in. I need to find, who am I, where am I, why am I, and then what do I do about it? And if you don't respond to cotton balls, then you get the cotton pebbles, then you get the real pebbles, then you get hit. And if it doesn't work, then you get thrown, you get hit with a brick. And if it doesn't work, then you get, with a big stone. But eventually, the bullseye is so big, and the creator loves all of us so much that ultimately we are only going to get to our beginning and end is the same. It's just that, how wide awake that we become to respond to this cracking of the seed. Is that a good interpretation?
Yes.
Excellent.
That's kind of what we look at it. And for somebody like Srini, I think, there are multiple bricks there had to be.
I think I need boulders, not just bricks.
Yeah. Sorry, I was lost for that.
I'm not asking anything from universe, honestly.
No, you don't.
I would ask for more knowledge than I don't want bricks or stones. I'm wide awake, just show me.
I see. No, but the thing is, actually, Umaji, it's just that my intellect, did not show me the word of the boulder, but that was what I had in the image. It's just that my words fell short, so I was only using the bricks and stones and this stuff. But literally, we've been thrown at boulders towards like pivot. I mean, and then my journey is still continuing. But the thing is, now there is so much joy in this exploration. And just like, I mean, many of you know about this, right? Now you do the startups, you do all the things. It's just, go there and then joyfully express yourself, not because you have something to prove. And I was telling this some other thing. on the LinkedIn, there was a post about one of my investors saying, and the company saying, clean welcomes, Srini as a CEO. I think, tomorrow or someday it will be like a clean fires Srini. I mean, it's like, what would be a joyous moment? Right? It's just like, it's a drama, right? But it doesn't mean that I'm actually goofing off. When I'm there, I'm actually engaging in the thing, what is being done there, but it's not there. So, but all this is being only possible because I'm exposed to this knowledge over the 10 years. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. It allowed me to navigate this life much better. In fact, the other day when I was in California, I went for a long walk with Rajiv, and one of the greatest forces in the valley. And I worked for him and with him for now almost 10 years. So, and he was the CEO of my previous startup, and he's considered one of, both were walking. He now listens to, watches most of my talks, and he also attended our YEC launching ceremony. And then he basically says, like, Srini, now I look at this Srini that I see is you're so confident, you're so assured, you're playing and this and this stuff. And then all I told him is like, don't give me any credit. Rajiv, if there is any one attribution that you need to do, is the greatness of our scriptures and the knowledge. So I think only me just tapping into a fraction of this is allowing me to express myself this way. So just imagine somebody who just enjoys it and plays with that. What kind of an exuberance. Then I said, like, Rajiv, only attribution that you need to say is like the Indian scriptures, the foundation is so strong. So we all need to invest in it. Now he's actually learning about flow and the karma yoga. And then he's building a new company. The first thing that he's doing right now is not forget. He's designing the culture. He's designing the excellence operating system. He's actually, the company that he's building, he explained all the things of what he's doing. It's all about the type of company that he wants to build, not about what he's doing. And the thing that he told me was like, he's going to open source it. That's not what an entrepreneur actually thinks about. Now he's like, this is what came to me from my experience, and I want to put it out there for the universe so the other can benefit it. And then we both were talking in the language of Sanskrit. It's just like, the culture should always be dynamic. We are constantly revising. It's like a meditation. I was explaining Patanjali thing is meditation. I was like, really? Meditation meant like, it was a static thing. It's like, no. It's a continuous flow of action. It is, but as long as it's fixated in the same direction, the pratyodaya, but then it's a dynamic process. So what is interesting to me is, now, even in my professional life, most of the conversations are around, what I enjoy doing. So the separation of professional and personal life is dwindling.
You're being paid both ways, is it? Right?
Exactly. So just like you get the benefit. I mean,
there, and also you're delivering products. Oh my goodness, what not? Awesome.
And then and then somebody gives me a salary for learning yoga, which is like, what the hell? Sorry, no, for putting practice. Okay. But anyway,
that is what actually happens. In fact, all of us may not be as fortunate as Shriji, but I'm saying this thing starts to happen. This thing starts to happen when you do not know when you're actually working and when you're not working, because you're so fully happy, and you're fully happy delivering the product, designing the product, and immediately shifting to a shloka somewhere. There's no real demarcation at all. And you are surprised at the end of the day the questions you asked about effortlessness and the work, right? On a joules, the number of calories that are burned do happen. But the experience inside is that I did not do anything. I'm really surprised. Oh, is this how it turned out? Wow, awesome. So there's a lot of wows about your own self. You're always confused. How come this happened within me? In fact, in every session, and whenever I'm talking about this yoga session, holistic topics happen. There's a continuous flow that happens, and after the recording, I sit down and make notes out of it. Because
actually, even this is absolute truth, because what comes out of it, we don't know what comes out of it, right? You just bake certain thing and you just go in the thing, and you're like, just thinking and saying something, and then you go back and listen to it, and you become like, you become your own guru at that time. And I was like, oh, this thing came out of this, this came out of it. But I think, it doesn't mean that, it's not there. We still have a long way to go. It's just that the journey is on the right path, right? We still get carried away by all these, movies that we put ourselves in. The only thing is sometimes we become more aware of it. When it's the conscious, I tell people, like, even if I want to get a sadness, or even when I do a bad thing, I do it consciously. So it's like, everything that I'm actually holding myself responsible for, consciously, I'm actually doing it. The moment is when we become unaware. And I think, we just need to bring the unaware to aware kind of stuff. And the thing is, sometimes it baffles people. Like when I'm in a meeting and I'm like, challenging everybody, this is what it is. And then immediately after that thing is there, I'm like, quickly jumping into cracking jokes with everybody. It's like, what do I, and then they think that is a multiple personality disorder. And perhaps multiple personality disorder. And, or it's a multiple personality order.
Yeah, it's not
Order. Why do we say disorder? Multiple personality order, because every context is different. You go an avatar there, you just execute to that situation of the other, and then switch to another avatar. So I think what we can say. But anyway, Savitaji, the types of, the pursuit, as long as the thing that we all do is this costume is prone for, what is this, Mila. The costume gets dirty, right? That is what is the real thing, right? The nature of the costume, the body and the mind, it's just like it's anitya, ashuchi, dukkha, anatma. This costume is prone for that, right? And then, because it's made of all these things, we go through some joy and the sadness and pain, separation, longing, kids, this thing, that's also real. The thing is, all this stuff is there, but the thing is, that is only one part of the reality. Then when you shine light on the other part of the reality, and beautiful thing is, and then there is a path. You basically is like, to be able to discern and navigate this. And then we put a conscious effort into it. So that's why the simple thing is, everybody come to the yoga class, do asana. Everybody comes to the pranayama, everybody do the thing. But I think all the thing, what I also learned is, this is one dimension, but the other dimensions, right? There are 4 streams of yoga, as Vivekananda said. Gnana yoga, which is what we are doing. Bhakti yoga, that is an important. Karma yoga, selfless service. The more we actually doing things for something beyond myself and my family, I think that actually does most the trick in the world. In fact, I have a huge bias for karma yoga. The more you're intentionally putting yourself in the service of others, even when I took a job, I'm not doing it for salary. I'm truly trying to do the right thing. And I, in fact, tell people, which is like, okay, if I do all these things, even if I leave, next month, you are going to be in a beautiful state. But the moment I'm trying to play the game of, oh, but my first vesting of the big stock that I have is only after 1 year. So why don't I time manage my entire action so that I get the maximum equity? That's good enough. That's good enough. While it may lead like you're getting near-term happiness, but what it's actually doing is the dukkha jnananta phala. All it's going to ultimately do is it's going to lead to unlimited bondage. So basically, when you are in a job situation, you basically it's like, okay, I'm given this task. Let me actually go build it such that this work lasts beyond myself. That is a path of selfless action. And then you just go do it. Then at that time, it's like once you stage like, what is the pay from here? But it's sometimes difficult, right? And this is what I think I shared with some of the people at Apple. I mean, the salary is like so big. And the way that I'm going to make is every year that I'm going to is like, at least, get to $1 million. Then the immediate tendency would be like, how long can I stay here? That's a drama. Then every behavior is conditioned by how to maximize the time. I mean, of course, but then I had to put an effort to break out of the game, using the Prakriti to break the Prakriti. So I literally put, when I was making, this is a fact, I was making more than $1 million a year. I literally was renting a small place, sleeping on the floor, so that I can operate with a sense of liberation of what I wanted to do. And it's an effort, actually. And that is what we mean by you have to use the Prakriti to transcend the Prakriti. And you have to forcefully doing it. I mean, the choice that you're making, right? You know, it's just like Savitaji, Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. All of us, you know,
you're giving too much credit on that.
This is just an example, right? You know, on the Saturday evenings, I'm sure most of us are in some parties or, you know, whatever the, you know, thing. And then waking up at 7:30 or 8 o'clock, and then attending a 60-minute class where you have to bend the body, and it looks messy, particularly if you ate a lot of laddus, it looks messy doing the asanas. But then the fact that we put that effort is the act of using Prakriti to transcend Prakriti. And doing that repeatedly, that abhyasa. And that is what actually says, right? Patanjali says, Prayatna Shaitalya Ananta Samapadhyam. Initially, you have to put an effort to transcend the Prakriti based on the amount of conditions that you have. You have to put intense effort, like an abhyasa. But that Prayatna Shaitalya, then that effort eventually becomes effortless. And when that becomes effortless, then it becomes part of your very nature. Then Ananta Samapadhyam. That's when the unbounded happiness is going to come in. The Prayatna Shaitalya Ananta Samapadhyam. And that is basically the game. The game is designed so perfect. We, with our little mind, we create a Minecraft or Halo, and we think that this is a 2 trillion market cap. You know, what is the market cap of a live game? That is Purusha Prakriti game. It's Mahat, Ananta.
Unmeasurable.
Exactly. It's just like, you know, what is that thing? Anivarto Nivartatma, something like that. Or Aprameya. Aprameya is one of the Vishnu Sahasranama. Aprameya Rushikesha, immeasurable. So that is what is the
But I think I'm still in Udara Nimittam Bahukruta Vesham in many areas.
Actually, can you slow down a little bit? Can you say that again? And then explain it.
Udara Nimittam Bahukruta Vesham. I think basically for existence, survival, which is stomach basically. To put different vesha, like, you know, you put different vesham. So I think I'm there in many areas of my life there, which is, but I accept that. I mean, your congratulations for you to bring the flow to work and, you know, what you enjoy and everything. But I think it's okay knowing that you are doing that for Udara Nimittam and also elevate around the same time, because I think this creates a lot of pressure. It's like, oh, it used to be, oh, that person has a purpose. How come I don't have a purpose? How come I think that separates us.
Yeah,
you know, how come this person knows exactly what they want to do? How come I don't know what to do? Like, you know, sometimes I don't even know what to eat. Sometimes.
No, but
right?
this one is actually, you know, what you say is number one, Udara Nimittam is not, you know, paid. You know, what do we have? How much can we eat? But the thing is, it's more of that consumption thing, right?
Yeah. It's not it's a consumption. It's like
it's a consumption, right? It's a consumption of all the things. The thing here is, somebody told me, actually, I was not somebody. It's just like most of my things come from Sarvapriyananda or some other kind of things, right? But it's just the connecting the dots. The way this Purusha Prakriti, the way the nature is created, it basically, it tempts you. It tempts you with all the sensory apparatus to give you a sense of pleasure, the Udara Nimittam. It tempts you. That is the very nature of the Prakriti. It actually tempts you to go seek the pleasure, but it never fulfills you. It never fulfills you completely. So you always want to go back at it, wanting to take another attempt at it, another attempt at. And then the unfortunate reality that we all need to realize is that we have a very limited apparatus, the sensory. I mean, what can you hear? Only limited frequency and the decibels. I mean, what you can do. But the thing is, the desire is unlimited. You know, you want to just go take a big bite on this universe, but you have a finite apparatus. In fact, the other day, about 10 years ago, I wrote a blog, and I was like, I wish the nature has reinvented itself to allow some people to digest gold biscuits, because they have so much gold that they accumulated, but they do not know what to do. At the end of the day, they can still eat the same banana or some little thing. It's like, at least if their digestion can consume gold or diamonds, they can better serve all the pursuits that they accumulated. But the nature, the great creator is, it created such a limit. If you really would want to take a big bite of this entire universe, the whole bite, you can actually take the whole bite, is when you go into the other thing, the pratyahara, go into the antaranga sadhana, make a pivot using the fifth limb. If you start doing this ahara consumption with the udaranimittam, with your sensory apparatus in the mind, you always take a limited bite and you always get to this temporal satisfaction, but it never fulfills you. The real pivot happens is pratyahara, and then pivot into antaranga sadhana. Then you can take such a big bite on the universe. I mean, you own the entire universe. And then you become Aham Brahmasmi. But here is the thing. This is all the knowledge and the flow. And I'm equally subject myself through all the pain, all the pleasure, all the joy. And in fact, more so than some of you would even imagine. Some of you would imagine. The other day I was explaining to Ramakanji, right, in one of the things. Oh, we had such a great party, and then we had Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir and then Cabernet and this and that. Then Ramakanji says, I don't even know what those words actually mean. So the thing is, but the thing is, that's not what you do. At some occasions, if you have to intersect there, if you can actually go do it and so on. But anyway, I'm not putting any mask in front of anybody that I'm like this enlightened being or this stuff. I'm as much as, why me? Actually, Arjuna, the most skilled and the warrior, he himself was in a dharma sankata, and we are all in different phases. I think all I could say is this knowledge and the path that I've been on over the 10 or now maybe 13, 14 years. But this path has been very steady. If there is any one thing that I'm so grateful for my life journey is this knowledge in this path. And most importantly, the amount of gurus that blessed me. Everybody came in at the right time. They imparted their wisdom, whether it's a pratyaksha or paroksha or any one of them. And it's even happening, the divine magic with all of you in front of me.
I think, Srini, the thing that, for me anyway, that I can do is have the right sankalpa and the sadhana. Those two are in my control. They will then lead you to wherever you're supposed to be. And the right people come into your life. I've watched that time and again. So there's no such a thing as, I'm an LKG student, I'm a master's, a PhD. Until you have the liberation, it's not like a graduation. That's not what I believe anyway. It is not like, first grade, second grade, third, there's nothing. And like Sant Kabir talks about it. So, enlightenment is ekapalka. You are not enlightened, and then you are once you see it the right way. I'm not there. I'm not saying I'm there, but that's what I believe in. So what is in my control is, the sankalpa, the pure intentions, and sadhana. So.
And the best part is, you said it so beautifully, but the interesting thought for me, this is a path that gives you continuous feedback. While there is no graduation, the progress you could actually measure.
Yeah.
Basically, what it comes down to is, are you being joyful? How joyful are you in your entire life experience? So if it goes from, I could see this, I was caught up in so much of anxiety and then in drama. My joyful quotient in my life experience was probably less than 10%. Now where it increased by a significant percentage. So the best part is you get continuous feedback. So anytime, bring it back to what Sankhya, anytime you have a sense of suffering or less joyful moment, that means, it doesn't mean that the situations are always, nicely comforting you and all this stuff. Whatever the situations that are being, whatever the matrix of action that you're caught up in, are you being joyful? Like, the COVID, the simple test of this COVID, right? If the COVID actually created a lot of anxiety and fear and the scarcity and all this stuff, it doesn't mean that you don't do the right things, precaution, that's different. But if it created a sense of panic and fear and scarcity, that means you are a little bit drifted away from your path. So I think that is the only metric that I'm actually going by, which is like how joy.
And the other thing that I've noticed is that, life situations happen. We human beings react to things that happen. Good may bring joy. What you can perceive as bad may make you anxious, but you come back to that neutral point quicker. So you're not going to be like thrilled about something wonderful that happened. Oh, okay. And come back to that center is what I call something unexpected happened, need to handle, whatever. Car broke down, something happened, whatever. You're like, oh, I'll deal with it. And you come back. That is what I've seen happen over the years, where things are not going to change. Like, world is world, life is life. They will keep happening, but you come back to that center space quicker.
Yeah, I think, all these are probably training things, right? Which is like, like I said, if there's a Buddha, you can actually see a cotton ball and then, it's just like, or he basically is like, okay, finds it. But the journey is not smooth. Buddha, it took, 10, 11 years, right? And Ramana Maharshi, deep inquiry, and for some of this thing. I think, my thing is, somebody told me this other thing. There are several S's. It starts with satsang, the right company. It starts with right company with you yourself first, right? With right swadhyaya. If you're not comfortable with your own company, if you do not enjoy your own company and aloneness, I think that's where the big problem comes in. I think we all have to start there. And then the right associations of the thoughts and people and the things that you eat. That is the first one, the satsang. And then the second one is sadhana, the practice, the tools that you have and trying to put an effort into your sadhana needs to be there. Then the third one is actually a very, very important thing, which is the seva, where the more things that you do for others without any expectation of anything. It's like, in the karma yoga that we say, it's like some people want to do this, for fame. Raja, people who are like, established in rajas, they would want to do that. People who are in the tamas, they want to do that for, it's just like pain or, whatever. And then, so basically it's like, don't expect anything, simply go work for others' well-being. And
Nishkama karma is the way to go. I tell all the youngsters that run into my life, try doing something good. I do that with my children too. Try doing something good and don't say anything to anyone.
Actually, this is one of the key pillars of the YEC, why sharing we actually put it in. In fact, most of the kids that I'm exposed to, right, in my thing, today, most of them are caught up in situations, most of them have a sense of lack. I mean, the other day I was with Rajesh and he was explaining a situation. Some kid was like so unhappy that he was not getting an upgrade from iPhone 12 to iPhone 13. And it's just like everybody else has this iPhone 13. And Rajesh's brain is like, but why? Tell me why iPhone 13? What is there and this and stuff? And then at some point we were all like, okay, this is the very situation that our kids and the future generation, most of us are all caught up. Right? So, but only when we start exposed to other parts of the world, underprivileged, and start doing something. Number one, whether they get benefited or not, that's the primary recipient is you going to be you exposed to something.
Absolutely. I always say any seva I do is not for them, it's for me. I'm the one that's benefiting out of it. Actually, any class I teach, it is me that benefits directly from it.
Exactly. I mean,
that is tangible for me.
Yeah. Exactly. That is one of the reasons why, Savitaji, we say that there is no giving and taking, and because I do not know who is the giver and who is the taker. In my experience, I've been the taker. So that's why we say it's like, just call it a sharing. and we share something that we have to the others, and then they give back knowingly or unknowingly something that is more valuable than that we perceive. So I think, but coming back to satsang, sadhana, seva, and then smile. And some of us, like, Srini and Savitaji, we have even more S's that starts with our names. So I know, we're playing with words right now. So we ended the session on
I'm not
Sankhya.
going to change my name to something with S, Srini. Thank you.
That's a good one.
I will just do double the seva for the S that I'm missing in my name.
Then we are going to call it like, Seva Uma. That's perfect. We can call that too. So, and then on that S note, I hope we all enjoyed the exploration of the Sankhya Yoga. Another S is everything. Actually, everything is everything. So let's all take a few breaths. Let's conclude the session for today. Take a deep breath for chanting Aum to connect with the Trinity within. Take a deep breath. Aum. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purna Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamanaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Your complete whole beings. Adding whole to the whole or taking whole from the whole, we all remain as that Nitya Sujasukha Atma. With that wonderful thought, let's do the final chant. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukkha Bhagave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We wish everybody to be happy. We wish everybody to be free of suffering, sorrow, and illness. We wish everybody to see only auspicious and true things. Let there be peace everywhere. These wonderful thoughts of your palms. And with the fire and love of knowledge, of your eyes, to transmit this knowledge, to give us the right vision, the Sankhya, Divyam Dadamiti Chakshu. Now slowly and gently, with a bright smile, at your own pace, open your eyes. So thank you. Before we adjourn for the next time when we meet, should we pivot into learning about Bhakti Yoga? That becomes even more interesting.
Sure.
Or are there any other topics that anybody would want to just have a satsang about?
Sankhya Yoga, I want more examples. I want built into the, maybe bring somebody who has done it successfully, or examples, bring it to this century to application basically.
Actually, there is actually, I was trying to connect it back to Sankhya Yoga, to Karma Yoga. Now, how this knowledge actually helps us with our day-to-day life. And there was let me probe on that. Let me probe on that. Instead of coming up with an answer, let me probe on that, and then see what I think. But anyway, let me just settle that. That's a good question. And then there are a couple of things, right? We can actually, in the completion of the Bhagavad Gita study, there are two more topics. One is Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, which is like, again, going deeper into the Prakriti and to understand the three gunas more. I think we covered a little bit of that gunas in the actions, but the gunas actually have manifestations and many different dimensions. So that is one, to go a little bit more deeper into the gunas. The thing that I'm very fascinated about is the bhakti, because ultimately, while this foundation of the Sankhya and Vedanta is so beautiful, but then it all have to culminate into a sense of bhakti, love, exuberance, because this can be dry. Sankhya could be a sense of dry. It's like sat. But to make it more joyful, like, like celebrate it like a birthday cake and with some nice topping and have more exuberance. Bhakti adds that experience.
To me, Srini, bhakti gives a different dimension. It teaches you surrender.
True. But the bhakti surrender teaches you. But the unfortunate thing is, bhakti without the foundation of Sankhya or Advaita can be detrimental. I mean, we are seeing the evils of that. Because some people believe in the whatever the faith and the total surrender, and then
you're probably pointing to the how do you say, the idol worship and all, right?
No, it's not idol. It's not. I mean, that is one aspect of it. But any bhakti without the foundation of Advaita, and again, this is a darshana from me. It's a point of view, right? Bhakti is unquestionable surrendering, right? Which is like, unconditional.
There is Sarvapriyananda's talk that is amazing on bhakti.
I shared two of them, Yoga of Love.
Okay, I probably watched it before. I know which one you're talking about. I love, and that particular one, he did a phenomenal job, even though he's mostly in the Advaita world. How he talks about the bhakti and how you can apply bhakti every day, every moment. That talk was really good. So maybe people can rewatch it. I've watched it a few times before in my lifetime. So, but then maybe we all can watch and talk about it.
Yeah, it's actually two parts. There's a Yoga of Love part 1 and part 2. Both talks
yes. Part 2 was a little bit shorter. I watched both those parts. I think he's done them maybe 3-4 years ago. Abhi ka nahi hai wo abhi.
Yeah. Those are my best magical talks of Sarvapriyananda.
So, yes, I have to agree. As talks go, he was into it. He I don't think anybody could have done a better justice to Bhakti Yoga like he did on that talk. He has had another one after that in the last 1 year or so, whenever the Raja Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Kriya Yoga, maybe एक chapter है उसका, लेकिन that one was done differently. This particular one, I think you shared it too, is one of the best. And I'll stop talking about how wonderful that is now.
Actually, all the things, I think, in my experience, after Sri Ramji, the one that created the most impact for me, Sri Ramji prepared the foundation and built the receiver and the transmitter, but the one that really allowed me to explore so many different dimensions is Sarvapriyananda. I just accelerated it, the amount of things that he connected me to from Upanishads.
To me, he's a little university.
And he is the one who is very accessible. In fact, I've been trying to meet him. I mean, I think he's one of the, for me personally, the amount of acceleration that he has done. I mean, just yesterday on the Gandhi Jayanti, I mean, the versatility and the depth that he has, even on Gandhi, the talk on Satyagraha, and that is so profound. And the Yoga of Love, as you said, that is like just things.
Yes.
And Ashtavakra Samhita, I mean, that one is like just one talk. It just opens it to, I think, all the streams of, I think almost all of his talks have been so profound for me. And he literally connected me to all most of the Upanishads, whatever I know, is only came from him. So that's so I think, we were going to cover some of those things too. And I think the way he stitches everything together, the culmination of all 4 streams of yoga, which we covered in the Karma Yoga series, it kind of gets summarized in the sloka, my karmani sarvani karmani. That is the ultimate culmination of bhakti that we can actually do in our action. But anyway, let's again come back to, we can do bhakti yoga, we can do Sankhya Yoga examples, we can do Gunatraya Vibhaga Yoga, and then and then of course, we can then branch into things like, Upanishads, Astavakra Samhita, all these things. But all these things connect to just one simple truth, which we've been covering. And then, let me look at it. If you have another suggestions, please share it on the group. And then, and more importantly, like if any of you would want to lead a session, pick a topic, and then if you would want to do it, I'll be super thrilled. Can I volunteer anyone?
Yeah, yes, Sriniji. Just give me 1 second.
Volunteer. Okay, so we'll talk out of band, and then we'll coordinate it. But otherwise, I'll talk to some of you and then prepare for next Saturday, one of the topics, either led by one of you or me.
No, I think we'd like to listen to you. And once the whole series is done, I think I've been making some notes actually in each session. There were some questions that some of us asked, and some point that flashed me, which would be an addendum, things like that. So once we are done with the entire series, I'd like to introduce some of those dimensions and the fun stuff. So,
So in the Bhagavad Gita, I have 2 more big topics that are left, which is like Gunatraya Vibhaga, and then I think it's also considered some of the secret knowledge actually. Then the other one is a bhakti. The other one is kind of a little bit more theoretical. Not theoretical, which is like the Sankhya. But the thing that I learned about this Sankhya when I was studying it, I could actually map it to my daily life now. The things like, you use the Prakriti to overcome Prakriti and this stuff, those are some of the important things. But I think we'll do the bhakti. So let me think about it, and I'll work with all of you, and then we'll complete the Bhagavad Gita series, and then we'll redo some of those examples and practical things. Everybody have a wonderful evening and enjoy the week that is dawning in front of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.